Hello and welcome to the Balanced Business Dad Podcast. This podcast is just one part of the Balanced Business Dad movement. This movement provides a platform of the important pillars of life while building this council of dads to support each other as we work to balance our lives. The 6 pillars of life that we strive to balance are our faith, our health, our marriage, fatherhood, brotherhood, and our business. We are here to build a council of dads to celebrate wins and as well as to share the challenges of being a husband and a father, and all the while working to keep our pillars in balance. The goal of the Balanced Business Dad movement is for dads to be better in all things, balanced, because everyone in our lives deserves it.
Dads, welcome to another episode of The Balanced Business Dad. I'm your host, Dustin Hogue, and with me always, my co-host, my senior, my friend, a mentor in life to me, Mr. RJ Campbell. You know, what I'm really liking is how many times and how many different ways can I make sure everybody knows RJ is older than me. So every new intro, I'm going to come up with a different way. So, RJ, how are we doing today?
Feeling aged.
There you go.
By the way, it's not just on here. It's every single situation he and I are in. Hey, look at this old guy next to me. So I hope everybody's doing great. Dads out there, hope everybody's having a wonderful day. It's a beautiful time. I'm doing well.
Yeah. Awesome. Guys, we got a special guest in the episode with us today. So a guy after my own heart, which I know sounds weird, but real estate investor turned coach, which I started coaching before I was an investor, yet we have that same similarity there. So dads, I know it's somebody that we can get a lot out of because everybody has a different way to look at your business and your life and how we can balance it. How can we keep moving forward by making sure that we're doing the right thing. So I love it. So guys, welcome to the show, Joe Rockey from
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, beautiful Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
love it. So Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know we just kind of got caught up a little bit and you have some interesting stories there, but tell us about, the Joe today, the family guy, the new father, or at least after, a year and a half there. And tell us what's going on in your world.
Well, there's a lot. So I guess the easy part that people normally start with as a guy is, what do you do for money? And as you mentioned, real estate investor, lots of tenants, lots of dealing with crews throughout the course of my life. Now all of my properties are in the lines of the tenants eventually buying them, which is fantastic. Can't even tell you that. I do host 2 other podcasts. The first one originated in 2007. That's called Father and Joe. That's where we essentially talk about the importance of relationships, the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship that you have with others, and that's all underneath the umbrella of the relationship you have with God. And then at the beginning of this football season in September, I launched a show called Local Football Flavor on YouTube. And the whole purpose of that is to talk to other fan bases, because anyone who's watched their own team be covered by a national media guy has heard them be flat out wrong, like a lot. And the point is, it's happening to your team. It's happening to all the other 31 teams as well. So why don't we talk to other guys and see what the case is? And that was the origin of where it was. We got all kinds of great nuggets, helped me with fantasy football. I was in 3 leagues, playoffs, and 2 of them, won 1 of them. So we're learning stuff. And then you can look at the betting accounts. You learn lots of fun stuff there. But the other thing that came out of talking to other fan bases was, how do they actually treat each other? And talking to some Colts guys and Kansas City guys and just seeing how much better they are than when the Patriots show up to town. It's just some great things that you learn throughout it. The way the Bills treat the Patriots are fantastic. And yes, I am from Pittsburgh. There's only been one franchise that got screwed harder by the Patriots cheating than me. It was Indianapolis. And then we obviously talked about everything in between, all kinds of insights about teams I never thought I'd ever mentioned before. And, for some reason, half of Kansas City hates the fact I say that Josh Allen isn't as good as Mahomes, or Josh Allen's better than Mahomes. And anytime I tell people the Eagles are good, Dallas doesn't shut up. So I have all of that going for me. So in terms of resilience from comments, there's nothing you can send at me that someone drunk in Dallas hasn't already thought of. So that being said, I try to be loose and ongoing, and not really let any of that kind of thing blend into my personal life. As part of this is obviously with it is, how to create all these different entities. Oh, I didn't even mention the coaching. I'm sorry. We also started elitebusinessconversations.com in there, where I do business coaching for businesses to make yourselves better. I also do individual coaching to help people make their lives in a situation, what we're going to talk about here, have more income, but more importantly, more freedom. And that means something different to each of the clients, but more freedom in what it means to you. And then, of course, we do our keynote addresses where I just bring knowledge and happiness to groups and different companies for whatever purpose they want me for. So to get into your key thing here of the life balance, I do have a wife. We've been together. We've been married for 5 years. And then we have a son now. He's 15 months old. And that kind of sums everything up over there, trying to make sure we got time, despite creating all these new things, to make sure that we have time for happiness in the rest of life.
That's great.
I love that. So you don't have a lot going on, is what I heard. Just kind of hanging out. No, that is awesome, and I love the go out there and do something that you want to do, and let's create a business around it. I know you talked a lot about football. I think that's that sport that's played on Sunday. So I am completely out of that conversation.
Yeah, Dustin is not the sports fan. Joe and I.
Well, you can appreciate that some people might care that their MVP quarterback just said he wasn't the best of all time and how they can't comprehend that. Like, come on.
Didn't even know that, but yes, I'm sure a lot of people were by that.
Yes.
Yeah, but what I love that is you have a passion there, and then you went and created something with it, right? And that's and how many entrepreneurs and dads, how many out there are we like that? We have this passion, and we're going to go create something. We are the creators, right? We are, and it's interesting. I've talked about this before, but it really made me think about that when you were talking. It's if there's a problem to be solved, right? Our country right now looks to the politicians, and I think that's the challenge. We need to look to the entrepreneurs because we are the creators.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. We are the ones, and in history, if you look back when the country was in trouble, when things happened, the politicians finally realized, hey, we need to go to the entrepreneurs out there to help us, right? And that's happened in wars. That's happened in, even,
that's not an American thing. That's a human being thing. You look at any civilization throughout history that's had writing. When things needed to get done, they went, now depending upon whose version of it, they went to the rich people or the industry, but they're the same people.
Yes.
You build a factory, you're going to become rich. I mean, just it's different period, but it's the same system. The people who are creating businesses ultimately are the ones that fix problems because by its nature, politicians don't. And this isn't unique to America in, 2023. They're not experts in basically anything except for selling themselves to get votes. It's the way it's been since the dawn of time.
It's very true.
In every civilization. I mean, you get the glaring exceptions, and that's who we remember, but that's the run-of-the-mill politician at any level. They just want to be heard and get a little check on the side for it.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Sad, but it's true.
We were talking about not long ago, Dustin and I, with the inflation that's coming through and everybody being so concerned about it, and as well they should, and the government saying, hey, we'll fix that, and Dustin's point and ours are saying like, no, we won't. All of us, the entrepreneurs, the business owners, we'll fix it. I mean, it sucks, but we'll just keep building business. We'll keep hiring people. We'll keep growing stuff, and we'll take care of it because the politicians don't know what the hell they're doing anyway.
Yeah.
We're going to play through on hard mode when it didn't need to be this way.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, we are the creators. We are the rule makers is what we found out last night. So, but no, that's awesome. So, Joe, tell us, so much you have to do so much right now, right? And really want to get into the coaching and how you can help other dads out there in their business. But how do you manage it all? How do you make sure that it's time, especially as a new dad? Because man, my son's 6 now, and then I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. But that first 2 years of your first child, to me, was one of the hardest because the kid really didn't even like you yet. They were starting to at that age, but they needed mom more. And I remember
that's real.
It was such a hard time in my life while I was building other businesses and while I was self-employed. And it's so, man, I'd love to hear, how are you guys keeping that in check? How are you making sure you balance that? And then I would love to hear about the relationship podcast you have there, because that's so true. It's how do you have your relationship with God versus everybody else? So take it away.
Well, not to answer in reverse order, Father and Joe definitely made a lot much easier with this. The fact that I've already centered a lot of those things internally before we jumped into having Joseph certainly made life easier. There's no way around that. One of the key things that we talk about there is your need to be able to communicate, and that happens in a lot of different ways. But one of the most important ones that all of us can do is if you feel something inside of you, even if it comes out weird or stuttery or awkward, just figure out a way to say it. And then as we grow in life, we figure out more eloquent ways to say the same message. But you got to figure out how, when there's something inside of you, to get it out. And that's true whether you're talking to a potential client, whether you're talking to an employee, or you're talking to your wife. You need to figure out a way to get it out because your mind is telling you this is important. And if you don't let it out, it's going to fester in one capacity or another, and you're going to have a negative byproduct. Maybe it's going to be a thing in the back of your mind that doesn't go away, so you don't sleep as good. Maybe it manifests itself as you're not working out as much because you're feeling sad or depressed or whatever. There's always a negative result of keeping something inside that you shouldn't. And that's a fact of life. That's part of our mental makeup. That's a human being thing. So that's, I guess, the first thing I can tell anyone. You need to get that thing out. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I created 2 new businesses before he was a year old. And anyone who has started into creating a new entity knows how much time it takes and effort to lift the thing off the ground. And I personally had the mindset of I had to wake up every 2 hours. My shift, whenever he was brand new, my shift was until 1 a.m. And we were literally had him sitting there. We'd watch Hamilton. I'd feed him. And then we'd go back to sleep. And then at 1 o'clock, I'd wake him up. We'd watch more Hamilton and I'd feed him. And that's basically how it went. And I was just in that mindset of staying up that late, being tired regardless. So why don't we launch this thing while we were at it? And that's where local football flavor started taking off. And yeah, I mean, I'd be up till 2 a.m, but it didn't matter. I mean, I was basically doing it regardless. I might as well do something with this time rather than just hearing more and more Hamilton, which, don't get me wrong, I love it. It's probably the thing I've watched more than anything else on Disney Plus, but it also could have been, more useful this time. Anyone who knows me knows I am not a morning person. I don't even want to be one. So that was the other reason I had till the 1 a.m, and half of the time the 3 a.m. shift as well. So that was just part of it. And to answer the balance part is you need to know yourself. You need to know your own breaking limits. Not to say you should never push them, but you need to know what they are. And you need to know what the people around you can handle. And the way that I coach people to deal with this is to build systems for your business that it can work without you being there. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. That's the only reason I really can do all of this. With the exception of the 2 newest businesses, none of the other ones need me anymore because I've built enough systems and gotten to a point of maturity where I don't need to be focusing on them. So yeah, every single one of my tenants are on autopilot right now. They pay apartments.com, and if they mess up, Jeff Goldblum gives them a little satty or crazy Jeff Goldblum picture and email, and then they pay eventually. So everything is systematized. Every single one of my employees is systematized in the way that they get paid. They do what they're supposed to do. They get more. If they don't, they get less. It's the way that I believe every job should be. It's most correlated to what you want and commission-based as possible. On that note, basically every job I've ever had in my life since I was 18 has been 100% commission-based, with the exception of a couple of internships I had when I was in college. So I thoroughly believe in building systems, giving your employees power, and incentivizing them through commission so that they are better off for it. So that's a very small snippet of kind of what I can go for there. It's hard to break it down in a concise 10-minute answer, but that's the starting point of it, at least.
No, that's a great answer. And systems, we talk about systems in a lot of our businesses. RJ and I just purchased a business that's been in business for 23 years, actually. Mm-hmm. And it's what I think. And then I also purchased another business in March that had been in business for like 9 months. Mm-hmm. And the night and day difference of the business that's been in business for 23 years, of how it's ran, like we don't even need to be there hardly now. We're just there to learn what this business does. Mm-hmm. Versus the business that had been there for 9 months and had 0 systems and was just an absolute train wreck. It's such a difference. Such a difference.
Yeah, the systems make.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's no way around that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask.
Yes.
So going back, Joe, you mentioned that the Father and Joe podcast. What is that? What's the origin of that, and who's father? I assume you're Joe.
Well, I am Joe. That is correct. I am Joe. So father is Father Boniface Hicks. We're lucky enough that he just happens to be the priest who does the local radio show for God around here. And why I say I'm lucky enough is he's number 2 in the world in terms of the English language, in terms of prayer and priest development. So talk about a super expert. I got him just because he happens to live 2 counties away, and now we can do everything via Zoom. But we discuss essentially everything I said before, the importance of the relationships that you have with yourself and with others and underneath the umbrella of God. So we do this in a lot of different, every episode gets back to that. That's the core of every episode, but obviously there's different topics just as there are with this show. So we've had conversations before about people saying that, I can mentally grasp the concept of God, but I don't feel him in my heart. Does that make me a bad person? Like how does that work? We've had conversations basically saying, hey, at the end of the day, Christianity is a religion of life, but this crazy dude over in Russia just started murdering people because he felt like it. If he wasn't here, those people wouldn't be getting killed. So essentially you're asking, are we allowed to root for the assassination of Putin? And that's a complicated question, right?
Wow.
Because on the one hand, all Ukraine would be way better off if he didn't exist. On the other hand, you're rooting for murder. So like how does a Christian want to break that down and think about that? So those are just some of the examples that we've gone through. We've done every Tuesday for 5 years. We've done an episode. So you name it. Some of them are particularly about specific Bible patches, but the majority of them are just things that are going on in my life, and I bring them to him, and he comes up with great answers.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. And it's a really nice process that people get a lot out of in the comments and in emailing to. We get more emails to us than comments because people want to share their story about how Father impacted them and how they implemented some of the stuff into their lives. So it was these systems that I got into the rest of my life. I try to make the core of any business system because it helps. I mean, there's really, at the end of the day, 4 things that every single individual can do to make their life better. And they're not complicated. All of us can control them, and it doesn't matter what capacity of life that you're in. The first is become more intelligent about something you have a passion about and get more and more knowledge about it. And it doesn't matter if we're talking like Harry Potter or how to land a Harrier jet. It doesn't really matter. You have passion and knowledge about it. It inherently will breed a level of confidence. And confidence is the most attractive feature any human being can have. It's one of the very few universally attractive features that our species possesses. The second thing that anyone can do is actually what I mentioned before about courage. If you feel something inside of it, get it out of you. You have no idea how much keeping that stuff inside of you anchors you back to a point where you're drowning and you don't even realize it. And if you can figure out how to get that out of you, it makes you stronger and makes your situation around you better. It also makes every relationship around you better because you're less guarded. And more guarded you are, the more problems end up finding you. It's unfortunately also a human nature thing. The third thing, and this is applicable really to the business side of the world, but in every relationship as well, is justice. Am I with this person? Did I hire this person? Did I promote this person because of an artificial means? It'll look good on a press release. It'll look good on a picture in a magazine. Or did I hire this person because they were the absolute best given the resources I wanted to spend for this position? In the private world, in our relationships, am I with this person just because I'm hoping for some status rub off? Or do I actually want to be friends and get to have a better relationship with this individual? So that's justice. And then the fourth one is the one that America is the worst at, especially our politicians, which is humility. You need to know, what true humility is. Humility is the hardest one because the other 3 are absolutes. You can always become smarter. You can always become more courageous in saying what's in your heart. You can always become fairer. Humility is balance. It's not making yourself the biggest person on the planet, nor making yourself the smallest. And finding that balance of where you are and what's appropriate for every individual relationship you're in. So you have a different relationship with your 6-year-old than you do with your wife, and you should. And the humility is perfecting that relationship and what the power structure should be and what the ultimate relationship is at the end of the day. And that's true for business relationships, customer client relationships, employee ownership, the whole 9 yards. It's finding that appropriate balance and making that follow through. And you can see why that's not an absolute, that's constantly needs to be worked on. But you do those 4 things, you'll be able to balance the center of your life, and really the rest of it will be able to come from itself.
Dads, that is what you call a mic drop. If you guys were curious, because that was excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that, because everything was correct there. We'll make sure we put those in the show notes because, and the time that we talk about that, because that was excellent. That was so true. And every one of those steps in your life, or so we talk about the pillars, right? In our faith, our health, our marriage, being a father, being a friend, and then our career. And honestly, those 4 things in every one of those pillars is what allows us to be better every day. And we talk about, the goal of the Balanced Business Dad and the council we started, the Dads Up Council, is to help other business dads be better tomorrow than they are today. Period. Yeah. That's the goal. That's the end goal, right? And those 4 things, I love it.
Yeah, and really those pillars you have are how I view the priority ought to be whenever we're trying to figure things out. Obviously, you got to put your mask on yourself. You got to be able to help yourself before you can help someone else. That's pretty straightforward. And for every person out there, and this is specifically to the dads that try to put their kids above their wives, you're going to break your marriage, and you're going to by default break your life. I look at it like that. It's straightforward. I can, not to go down a critical route, but you can make another kid. You can't make another wife the way you have her. And the end of the day, if you mess up the relationship that you have with your wife, you ruin the kid more than you could ever do anything else.
Beautifully stated.
And that's a fact.
Yeah.
So
I think he's listened to all our previous episodes. You two guys, I'm cracking up. I'm pointing to the screen like people can see me, but it's amazing. Listen to Dustin, who's a business coach and a results coach, and Joe, who's a coach, and how their minds think so much alike. And there's 2 things. Dustin has said the same thing. You got to put your mask on first. And then we've talked about on this, there's a reason that marriage is above fatherhood. And our priority is marriage is forever and parenthood is temporary, because eventually those kids grow up, mature, and they are on their own. They're always your kid, but they're making their own decisions and they're moving on. But you're with your spouse, hopefully. That's what we commit to. That's the covenant, is we're with them until we die. It's permanent. It has to be. It has to be the number one thing up there as far as above your kids. As sad as it is to say in that way, it's super important.
No, it's the truth, because where people mess up, and this is incredibly common, is the relationship they have with their spouse starts to break down. So then they look for their kids to give them an adult relationship, which they are not capable of doing. So then you're messing up your child because you're trying to ask them to be something they aren't. And the level, as we're talking about justice, the way that you're supposed to relate to a child and to your spouse are different. And trying to make your 6-year-old become up to level of adult is not fair to them, first of all, and you'll never be able to get the answer. So you end up becoming more dependent upon someone who's not capable, and you accelerate your path of destruction. So that's 100% fact, and that's something that this country is, well, not country, this Western civilization is really in trouble with, is making their children, or any kid in general, equal in status as an adult and not trying to treat it the same. There's nothing wrong with being friends with your kids, but they are not meant to be your adult friends. And that line needs to be clear and apparent.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Man, so true. RJ and I, we always say that, these pillars were 2 guys talking at a bar, and that's really where they came out of, right? Because we were talking one night and realized that life was good, but not great. We realized there was things missing, right? And we talked about the pillars a lot, but putting the mask on yourself, and that's why faith and health are so important there. Last year, a lot of the listeners know, but Joe, I'll tell you, is I went on a I guess it's 2 years ago now, but a health journey where I lost 70 pounds.
Oh, awesome!
And everything was, I don't want to say pushed to the side, but that journey took priority of so much, because I had to do that. That's the only way I was going to be able to be a good husband. That's the only way I was able to be a good father. That's the only way I was going to be able to be a good business leader as well, because it needed to happen. And we talk about that, like sometimes that is that mask going on that pillar, if you will. We have to focus on that and get out of balance sometimes to be put back into balance to make everything work. So I love that.
Yeah, because we all have this ability to, like, when something's messed up, to make the other muscles like take over. Like for me, for instance, I just had shoulder reconstructive surgery. And the reason is I fell through a floor and a door frame caught me. And instead of my ball joint being nice and rounded, it got an edge to it. I literally was sawing off my bicep for half a year. But the other muscles, as all the rotator cuff was destroyed, took over. And we have that ability with all these pillars you're talking about. So unless you realign yourself. And Dustin, ask you a question. During your health journey, did that include fasting?
Some days it wasn't a fast, it wasn't a restrictive 16/8 or anything like that, but I definitely did a couple 24-hour fasts in it.
Yeah, I 100% recommend fast. Having the ability to know that you can fast and have fast.
Yeah.
It requires maturity, obviously, because you're just foregoing something for a period of time. But it also will reignite what is actually meaningful and what isn't, in a way that I don't know of a different way that you can. I know for myself, I do fasting. I eat only during Lent. I only eat once a day, and the days you're not allowed to eat meat, I don't eat at all, basically because I don't like fish. But learning that process is imperative. You know, you see what people use as excuses here, to not perform in these pillars. They just become so fake and so obvious that it's like, I can really realize that I brought a lot of negativity I didn't bring to the table, and I can easily weed them out. You know, like the concept of being hangry has not come to me ever since I did my first fast 6 years ago. It also, for better or worse, for my personality type, lets me know that I can lose 30 pounds in 6 weeks. So I can eat whatever I want during the summer and the winter. On the one hand, it's cool to know that. On the other hand, you take advantage of it during things like the playoffs. So once we cover, and it's amazing. They put the Super Bowl right before Lent starts every year, so I can start losing all that weight I put on during the playoffs. So, but that's a digression within itself.
Well, there was one thing not to interrupt. I don't know. Were you saying something, RJ? Sorry.
No.
One thing I heard there was something a coach that I still follow, but one of my very first business coaches and results coach said. He always said it's doing without while you're doing within. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I never looked at fasting as a maturity building thing, but that's truly what it is. And that's kind of what he was talking about. Now, he might be, hey, fast on the lifestyle creep, because you're making more money than you ever have before, and you go spend it. So he's like, do without for a little bit while you do within. And that's interesting how you worded that. So I really like that, because it's a maturity thing to do without sometimes. Mm-hmm. Love that.
It is, and there's just no way around that. I mean, food's the easiest one to tell, right? Because you can see, you can actually feel yourself withering, and you can feel the difference, and you can see it. It's hard to see it, even though it's incredibly beneficial, putting a screen down for an extra hour a day. It's incredibly beneficial for your psyche, but in the same way, you don't see it. You see your belt getting tighter and things being baggier on you as you're wearing
100%. Mm-hmm.
So that's the perk of what I would say doing fasting, because people normally need to see direct results, and that's sometimes it's not sometimes, it is part of the challenge that we have in modern America, of getting people to recognize that God should be number one, because you don't see these results overnight. You don't see that, I didn't blow up as bad when we had a fight. I actually was able to be calm for an extra 6 minutes, and because of that, the super anger that came inside me subsided, and things actually were able to develop and improve much better. And, to me, that all byproducts from having a relationship with God and having the humility to know that you're not the end all be all, nor are you the least important. So,
wow, that's slow to anger and quick to listen. Almost sounds like that could be biblical.
Yeah, something like that.
Love it. Wow, this is great stuff, and like I said, this is one that you want to go read back and listen, especially those 4 steps. And I know we're going to put those in the show notes for everyone. We appreciate it. So RJ always keeps some questions in his back pocket. So I'm curious what he has for you now, because I do tend to lead a lot of the conversation. So I'm going to work on giving him some opportunity to ask some of those questions too.
I have to raise my hand.
I put him on the spot.
I have to raise my hand.
Yeah.
So the other the first one I just thought was funny. It caught my attention when I was going through Joe's bio before the first time he and I even spoke. And you have something in here that says, and I think it's under your possible show titles. I thought this was kind of funny, but now I have to call my mom and go to a casino. There has to be a story on this one.
That's actually probably, aside from the 4 pillars of life as I gave before, that's probably my second most requested keynote address that I give. So the long story short is all of us as entrepreneurs need to be invested in sales at the end of the day. And I look at sales as 3 key components. And the first is we need the people to know that we exist. So I'm going to use a bakery as an example. They need to know my bakery exists, and they have to have a desire to at least check it out once. Step 2, when they are in the bakery, they need to want to be there long enough to give me money. Step 3, I need to give them some awesome bread. So when we look at this, a lot of the creators and the creation, as we were talking about in the beginning part of the show, is focusing on making that awesome bread. And it is fantastic. But if no one ever knows we exist, how are they going to get there? So I do this entire process of deconstructing that into any sales situation ever. So if I'm in Las Vegas, who is the best table game that actually controls what they're doing in terms of the dealer? What dealer actually is the only one of all of the games in Las Vegas that has 100% control over the action? Most people sit around and think about this and go,
I would have guessed
blackjack, maybe Keno, maybe craps. The answer is it's not a single card game because they're all shuffled by a machine now. So all the card games are off the table. Craps is thrown by yinzers who are also gambling with you. Maybe they're talented, maybe they're drunk, who knows? But the only one that's actually controlled is roulette. Roulette, the one that everyone says don't play. You win roulette by being a sales. So the first thing is you need to find the target that wants to have you there and actually would be sad if you're not. So people get bored really easily when there's just standing around waiting for someone to come. And if you can come up and treat that person as an actual individual, because everyone else in that casino is essentially a robot. I'm just spinning out cards. I'm just pushing buttons. And you don't really need a human interaction. That's why these all have gone digital casinos. But in roulette, if you treat them as a person, because they are a person, like, oh, okay, I actually have a connection to you now that the other 99% of the people who come across my table don't do. So I've already differentiated myself immediately. It's obviously very important to sales. These are all sales skills. So you differentiate yourself. Then we need to create a win-win. So in roulette, it's very easy. I play the same 5 numbers. I'm going to be easy. You don't need to think about me. I'm going to be here, 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 and here. For me, it's the 2 green ones, the number 2, 13, and 25. I picked the 2 green ones because they're the easiest one for the dealer to see out of the corner of their eye. Like, hey, I can see this while looking at you, but I am really there. Okay. Number 2 is right next to it. But more importantly, number 2 has a bet called the basket where you can pick the 2 green ones and the 2, and they get paid on that. So that's how I do it. I put my 5 chips down every time. After they hit me, I put 1 in for them on the 2 greens and the number 2. So if they hit me again, they just got a times 11 payout. Most people give them $1 or 2 as, a tip. They get 11 times what my bet was. So if I'm putting a $10 chip down, they just got paid $110. Now in Vegas, it's fun because it's cumulative. So if they do it 4 times in a row, 1,100 or Christian, 110, 220, 330, 440, all added together, they just made themselves $1,100 in 5 minutes. I only need to hit 1 out of 6 times to be profitable. So getting hit 5 times in a row, I'm set. Do that one time in Las Vegas with one person who wants to see you. I personally tend to do it whenever the place is dead, 9 in the morning or so. Boom, you just got yourself a great little pot of revenue going into the rest of your day at Las Vegas. So that's the main way of how you can make money in Vegas. And the reason you want to call your mom actually goes back to the 4 pillars I was talking before. If you don't have the courage to tell people you already know something that's wrong inside of you, you're not going to be able to do it unless you practice. So the easiest person to practice with are those who already love you. And for most people, it's their mom. So call your mom, practice letting something out, and you'll be better off for it.
Mom will forgive you no matter
that
what.
is
I love it.
2-3 hour, or that is what basically 2 90-minute keynote addresses broken down to 10 minutes for you. You guys got both of them out of it.
I love it. Perfect.
I love it. Those are all good. I'm kind of want to go to Vegas now.
It's sales skill. I mean, you really, most people don't treat each other as people. You see people in another profession. Like, think about it. When's the last time you went to fast food and you actually called the person by name, read their name tag, and called them by name at the drive-thru?
So true.
I'm willing to bet that of everyone listening, maybe 0.1%.
Yep.
Yeah.
But these are little things we all could incorporate to our lives, and by making more human connections. I mean, that's an incredibly small connection, but putting yourself open to it opens up just so much more. And the thing with humanity is the more you find in other people, the more it finds in you. And because it's an attractive feature, the better things work out.
So true. Wow. So good. This was an excellent episode. Joe, we appreciate you joining us today. There's so many nuggets to take: how to gamble, how to live a better life. Don't
do it electronically.
Yeah, do it with a person. Yeah. Get involved.
Yes, do it with a person.
Yes, makes so much sense. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in this episode. As you know, 2023 is going to be very big for the Balanced Business Dad, as well as the Dad Up Council that we have formed. In the show notes, we're going to have a link to a page that talks about the Dad Up Council and why you want to join that. But it is the movement. We're here for each other. It is the brotherhood that we all need. It's where we can be transparent. It's where we can become better for the people who need us in life. And the framework that goes along with it is the same framework that RJ used to leave corporate America or transition. It's the same one that I used to lose 70 pounds. It's the same one other dads have used to save their marriage and their relationship with their kids. So guys, check that out. You'll also see very soon we have our next Dad Up Council retreat happening in May. The first weekend of May in Lesterville, Missouri. I'm sure Joe has no idea where that is, but I purchased a campground there. So we have a dad's retreat down there. I'd love everybody to check that out. RJ, close us out.
Yeah, that's right. Joe, we're going to drag you to South Central Missouri the first weekend of May. So you can come to the...
It's all right, as long as I can tell people Josh Allen's better than Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, nobody will care. Yeah, they'll love it. We don't. We're from St. Louis, so we don't like Kansas City people either. That's really not true because Dustin...
I don't have a problem with them until they take to the comments.
We have to say that. Dustin has different business partners that are in the Kansas City market, but you always have that between the Cardinals and the Royals. Yes. So there's always that animosity between the two different sides of the state. But as you say, I end all this, guys, thank you very much for listening. We put out this podcast for you guys. It's, obviously it doesn't cost anything. It's just a passion project of ours. So help us out. Biggest thing you can do, go into Apple, go into Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, and give us a review. That helps more than anything else. Leave a comment, do a review, and it gets this out there so other dads can find it. And more people like Joe can find us, and we can find him, and we can share all these stories and just have a good time making fun of Dustin because he's young.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
We'll see you guys.